there's three big themes driving our business. We refer to them as old distress, new distress, and bank retrenchment. Old distress really revolves around the fact that, particularly in Europe, there's still a lot of deleveraging going on from the crisis that occurred in 2008. And so even though those things have moved on in the more Anglo-Saxon markets, there's still a lot to do in places like Spain and Italy in Europe. I would say new distress really revolves around the stress that we see from things like the commodity cycle, the energy cycle. And so that's really producing the new set of stresses in the credit system that will drive our business over the next several years. And bank retrenchment is a little bit different. I mean, there we really refer to the fact that due to regulation, due to the pullback of banks from more traditional forms of lending, there's a gap in the market, and we express that gap by either buying the infrastructure to lend, particularly to consumers, or by extending loans to companies and the like ourselves. Volatility is often associated with some of the biggest investment opportunities that we have, and there's good volatility and bad volatility. I guess the real key for us is to be able to not just find volatility, and volatility really just means that there's a mismatch between buyers and sellers. That's what we like, but to also have the business that can unpack that complexity and find value within it, and so not simply find a place where prices are going up and down, also find a place where there's value and we can buy things more cheaply than their fundamental value. One is we've built a very big and global business to do this, and we can use the learnings that we take from one part of the world and apply them to other places. I would say the other thing about that is we've really invested in doing what we do in the different markets that we're in, and so that means not just having the right people, and so being well entrenched in the different jurisdictions that we're in, opening offices in the jurisdictions that we're in. In somewhere like Spain, we've hired Spanish-speaking investment professionals. We've put offices on the ground there. We're entrenched in that country and doing business there, and that's an expensive thing to do, and it's a time-consuming thing to do, but it's a big competitive advantage. And then the last thing I would say is, when we go into these markets, we do it in a comprehensive way, and so we bring a platform that can really provide solutions across a number of things for counterparties, banks and the like. And we also end up with some real barriers to entry. If I pick up on the Spain example, by virtue of being in that market now for about 10 years, we not just have people on the ground, we don't just have people at Vrde who can do the business, but we own an NPL servicing business there with Banco Popular. We own a credit card business. We own a home builder that we created through a distressed restructuring. Yeah, Asia has been consistently between 10 and 15% of our investing activity over the last 7 or 8 years. And it's been a very important and profitable place for us as well. And you mentioned the Latitude transaction. That's certainly one of the bigger things that we've done here, but we've invested around about $2 billion across different strategies here over the last 7 or 8 years. And so it's been very significant, and I think we've been a significant presence in the credit markets in this region. I would say, if anything, we expect that to go up quite significantly as we go forward here. We'd be pleased and maybe disappointed if this doesn't come true. We'd be pleased if we get to 30-40% of our investing, depending on how a cycle plays out in Asia. And why do we say that? Not just because we want to allocate to the region, but because we see a lot of really interesting things here. I'd say it's one of the few places in the world where over this cycle there's been a lot of credit accumulation. So people have accumulated credit, there hasn't been much of a cycle, and now you see some of the forces that lead to stress are really hitting. We opened an office in the region in Singapore in 2008. We have 20-25 people now on the ground in Asia, and we actually have 4 offices. We have a small office in Hong Kong, a more significant office in Tokyo, and an office in Sydney. And I would expect that to grow along with our goals of growing assets under management in the region. If you look at the evolution of our business in Europe as a good comp maybe for that, we opened there in 2004, started as a very small operation, and now has more than 70 people. And I think over a period of time in Asia, we would expect a similar sort of evolution.